I'm 76 years old, and my phone has 17 missed calls. I can see them lighting up the screen from across the room. My daughter, my son, friends, the doctor's office. I know I should answer. I know people are worried. But every time the phone rings, I feel this wave of exhaustion wash over me, and I just let it go to voicemail. And yesterday, sitting in my silent house, surrounded by unanswered calls, I had this terrible realization. I'm not just avoiding phone calls, I'm avoiding people, avoiding connection, avoiding the outside world. And I'm doing it because engaging with anything beyond these four walls has become more than I can handle. It started maybe 4 months ago. Phone calls began to feel like work. Someone would call, and I'd see their name, and think about having to be alert, coherent, present, for however long the conversation lasted. I'd have to remember what we talked about last time, keep track of what they were saying, respond appropriately, and some days that felt like too much, so I'd let it ring, tell myself I'd call back later when I had more energy. But later never came, because I never had more energy. At first, it was just certain calls. Telemarketers, obviously, but then acquaintances I didn't feel close to. Then friends I did care about, but the conversation seemed like it would require too much from me. Then family, then everyone. Until my phone became this thing that sat there demanding attention I couldn't give, creating guilt I couldn't face, so I just stopped looking at it entirely. I live alone. I've lived alone for 10 years since my husband died, and living alone after 70 means phone calls are your primary connection to the outside world. They're how people check on you, how you stay part of their lives, how you prove you're still here, still okay, still managing. When you stop answering, you're not just avoiding conversation. You're severing the threads that tie you to everyone who cares about you. Have you felt this happening? Calls becoming burdens instead of pleasures? Connection feeling like work you're too tired to do? The voicemails piled up. I'd see the notification, but couldn't make myself listen to them. Because listening meant having to respond, having to acknowledge that people were reaching out, having to engage when all I wanted was to be left alone in my quiet house. So they accumulated. 10 messages, 15, 20, each one representing someone I was letting down, someone I was pushing away, someone who was probably getting more worried the longer I didn't respond. My daughter started leaving messages that shifted from casual to concerned to frightened. "Mom, just checking in." Then, "Mom, I'm getting worried. Please call me back." Then, "Mom, if I don't hear from you by tonight, I'm driving over there." And I'd hear the fear in her voice and feel terrible, but still couldn't make myself pick up the phone. Couldn't summon the energy to reassure her. Couldn't face the conversation about why I hadn't been answering. When was the last time talking to someone felt easy instead of exhausting? When did your phone stop being a lifeline and start being a burden? The isolation crept up so gradually I barely noticed. Days would pass without speaking to anyone, without hearing another human voice except on television, without any connection to the world beyond my windows. And it should have felt lonely, but mostly it just felt quiet, peaceful, like I'd found a refuge from demands I couldn't meet anymore. Like I was finally allowed to just exist without having to perform being okay for everyone else. But I wasn't okay. I knew I wasn't okay. I'd stopped showering as regularly, stopped getting dressed in real clothes, stopped eating proper meals. The house was getting messier. My routines were falling apart. And every phone call I ignored was another person I was preventing from seeing how bad things had gotten. Every unanswered ring was me choosing isolation over help. My son showed up at my door after a week of unreturned calls. He let himself in with his key and found me in my chair, unshowered, in pajamas, surrounded by days of accumulated mess. And the look on his face, the shock mixed with fear, mixed with sadness. He asked if I was sick, and I said no. He asked why I hadn't been answering, and I couldn't explain it in a way that made sense. How do you tell someone that existing has become so exhausting that you can't even manage a phone conversation? Do you recognize this retreat? This pulling away from everyone because engaging with them requires more energy than you have. We sat at my kitchen table, and he asked questions I didn't want to answer. When had I last left the house? Couldn't remember. When had I last eaten a real meal? Didn't know. When had I last done laundry, or cleaned, or taken care of basic tasks? Everything had blurred together into a grey fog of days spent in my chair, avoiding the phone, avoiding people, avoiding life. He said the words I'd been dreading. That he was worried about me living alone, that this wasn't normal, that elderly living alone required a baseline level of engagement with the world, and I'd fallen below it. That when you stop answering your phone, when you cut yourself off from everyone who cares about you, you're not protecting your independence. You're losing it. You're creating exactly the situation that leads to nursing homes and loss of autonomy. And he was right. I knew he was right. Because what I'd been doing wasn't independence. It was isolation masquerading as independence. It was withdrawal masquerading as peace. It was depression or exhaustion or something pulling me away from everything that made life worth living. And I'd been letting it happen because fighting it felt too hard. The phone rang while we sat there. My daughter. He handed it to me and I just looked at it, feeling that familiar wave of overwhelm. But he didn't let me put it down. He said, "Answer it. Mom, talk to your daughter. Let her know you're alive." And I did. I answered. And her voice, the relief and worry and love in it, made me cry. Made me realize how much I'd been hiding from, how much I'd been losing by trying to hide. She came over that afternoon. Together they didn't lecture or judge. They just helped. Helped me shower and change. Helped clean the house. Made me eat. And they set up a system. A schedule of calls. My daughter every morning. My son every evening. Not long conversations. Just check-ins. Just proof that I was still here. Still connected. Still part of the world. And they made me promise to answer. To not let myself disappear into isolation again. But we also talked about why it had happened. About how overwhelming everything felt. About the exhaustion that made even simple interactions feel impossible. About aging and independence, and how sometimes the independence we're trying to protect by isolating ourselves is exactly what we're destroying. About getting help before it's too late. We arranged for someone to come in 3 times a week. A home health aide. Not to do everything for me, but to be there. To help with tasks that had become too much. To provide some structure and routine. To be another person checking on me, noticing if things were slipping, making sure I wasn't retreating back into isolation. And I started seeing a therapist who specializes in older adults. Someone to talk to about the exhaustion and the withdrawal and the feeling that everything is too much. Someone to help me understand that what I was experiencing wasn't just normal aging. It was something that needed addressing. That isolation, especially for elderly people living alone, is dangerous. That losing independence often starts with losing connection. It's been 6 weeks now. I answer the phone most days. I talk to my children regularly. The aide comes and helps me maintain basic routines. The therapist is helping me understand my patterns, and I'm learning that staying connected, even when it's hard, is part of staying independent. That you can't live alone successfully if you're completely isolated. That phone calls aren't burdens, they're lifelines. That people reaching out aren't demanding from you. They're helping you stay tethered to the world. But I also know this could happen again. That the exhaustion could overwhelm me. That I could slip back into that grey fog where answering the phone feels impossible. That this is a struggle I'll probably face for the rest of my life. The balance between the peace of solitude and the danger of isolation, between protecting my energy and cutting myself off from support. I'm learning that when you stop answering calls because it feels overwhelming, something fundamental has shifted. That's not just being tired or busy. That's a warning sign. That's your mind and body telling you that you need help. That living alone has become too much to manage without support. That independence and isolation aren't the same thing, even though they might feel like it. If you've stopped answering your phone, if calls feel overwhelming, if you're pulling away from everyone because engaging requires too much energy, please hear what I'm saying. This is serious. This is how isolation happens. This is how people end up completely cut off, deteriorating in their homes with no one knowing. This is how you lose the independence you're trying to protect. There's still time to reach out. There's still time to answer the phone, to reconnect, to let people help you before you're completely isolated. But there's not unlimited time. And waiting until you've pushed everyone away, until no one's calling anymore because you never answer, until you've been alone so long you've lost the capacity to connect, that's when you really lose everything. So please, answer the phone. Pick it up. Talk to the people who care about you. Let them know you're struggling. Let them help, because that's not losing independence. That's maintaining it. That's staying connected enough to keep living your life instead of just existing in isolation. If this resonated with you, if you've been avoiding calls and isolating yourself, I hope you'll subscribe to this channel. Share this with someone who might be disappearing into their own silence. Leave a comment telling me your experience, because you're not alone even when you feel like you are. Hit the like button if this felt real. We need to talk about isolation. We need to answer the calls. Real independence requires connection. And that's something I'm learning one answered phone call at a time.